Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Unilife with Canvas Nottingham. I'm your host Miles, and throughout this summer semester, we're doing a series of episodes titled Before You Go. Each episode you'll hear a member of the Canvas team share about a topic we think would provide some food for thought as this year comes to a close and encouragement to carry with you moving forward. And this week, we are joined by our very own Matt Hawkins.
Hey, Miles.
How are you doing, Matt?
I'm good. It's good to finally be in the studio with you.
I know. I mean, we're into season 3. It's the first time we've had you as a full-fledged guest.
Yeah, I've been a special guest before, but not the actual guest.
Yeah. So, how does it feel to be on the other side of the curtain this week?
It's good. It's a little weird. Kind of cramped in this closet with you, but it'll be good.
It will be really good. It's like we finally have a character arc where the two of us got brought together for discussion. So, to kick us off, I think a great first question is, looking back to your uni days, a long 8-9 years ago, what stands out when you look back to those days?
I appreciate you calling me old there.
It was subtle.
Yeah. I actually had a really good uni experience. I know not everybody has that, but for me, I was really lucky and I really enjoyed my uni time. I went to uni in the States at a place called Georgia Tech. Go Jackets. And it was great. My first year, I came in and I did something which I had done in high school, which was I was in the marching band. I know our British audience may not have a ton of context for that, but it's a band basically, and like during halftime of the American football game, they go out on the field and they like stand in shapes and play music, and I enjoyed it in high school, and so I kind of decided that was how I made friends in high school, and so I didn't know how else I was going to make friends in uni, so I decided to do the marching band. That was a lot of fun, and then so that was the autumn during the American football season. In the spring, I got connected with an organization called CCF, which is basically a lot like Canvas, and I just fell in love with it. It was such a great community, and everybody there seemed really fun and easy to talk to, and so I made a ton of friends, and I really enjoyed that kind of in the spring of that first year. And so second year, I decided to not do band anymore and to just do CCF, and that was a great decision. I had a ton of fun. I actually met my now wife that second year at CCF.
Good trade-off from playing musical instruments to meeting your wife.
Yes, that was a good decision on my part. So yeah, that second year was a lot of fun. At the end of second year, I decided to switch majors because that's a thing that you can do at American universities. I had come in as aerospace engineering because I'm a dork and I like airplanes. But it turns out, as an aerospace engineering major, you don't really do anything with airplanes. You just do calculus problems that happen to be about airplanes. And I didn't really like that. So I switched to computer science for my last 2 years. Third year was really good. I continued with CCF. That also was the year that I did a term as an exchange student at the Canvas location in Birmingham. And that was how I got connected with Canvas and just immediately fell in love with that community as well. And that kind of planted the seed that maybe I would want to work at Canvas again after I graduated. So yeah, fourth year came back, did some more CCF stuff, and sometime that year I think I decided that I did want to come work at Canvas, and so that's kind of the short version of my uni experience.
That's a really cool story. Are there any specific moments or stories within the broader story that stand out?
Yeah, there's, lots of stuff that I remember. I remember that first year when I kind of first got connected with CCF. Some of the other first years were really into this game, Mafia, also known as Werewolf sometimes. And it got pretty heated. If you haven't played, basically it's like a game where you're all like members of a village, supposedly, and a few people are in the Mafia, and they're trying to like kill everyone, basically. And you have to figure out who's in the Mafia before they kill all the townspeople. And I know with our group it got very heated. Feelings were hurt, friendships were strained. We eventually had to stop playing, but there were definitely some sessions where we were late into the night, 2 or 3 in the morning, playing Mafia, accusing each other of double crossing and all kinds of craziness. And so that was a lot of fun. I also remember we would, Thursday night was kind of the big event at CCF. And after that, we would a lot of times go out to dinner or out to hang out afterwards. And so we'd go to Waffle House, is this American like diner type place that's really only good in the middle of the night. Like you should never go to Waffle House when the sun is up. But late at night when you just want some cheap breakfast food, it's a great pick. And so we'd go to Waffle House in the middle of the night and hang out. Yeah, just like so many like community things like that. Going to baseball games with friends, things like that, really stick out from uni.
That's really cool. What do all those things, like all these stories, sound really based with other people and based in events? And how did that really develop your life?
Yeah, I think that really gave me an appreciation for what a good community looks like, and that's what we're talking about today. Um, I think being in a community like that, in a place where you feel, at home, is just really good. Being in those friendships and things, that's what all of my best memories from uni are in the context of community. Hanging out with my friends and stuff like that. So, yeah, that definitely kind of set the tone for sure.
And community is a term we use around Canvas a lot regularly. So that we're all on the same page when we're moving forward talking about community, what does community mean to you, and what are you specifically talking about today?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, because it is a word that we use a lot, and I think we all assume we know what we mean, but I think we might mean different things sometimes. For me, the important part is that I think in a real and good community, everyone is welcome. It's a place where you can feel safe. It's a place where you can be respected for who you are, where you don't have to try to be somebody that you're not in order to fit in, or you don't have to try to seem cool to prove to people that you deserve to be their friend or whatever. It's just somewhere that you can come and be yourself and be loved for who you are.
Yeah, I think that's so true, that you don't have to be somebody else. You don't have to fit the mold to be another person and do more or achieve more, and then you can belong. But just as you currently are, it is good enough.
Totally.
So why is community important when we're talking about faith and the idea of God? If it's something like, oh, if I believe in this, why do I need other people involved in this journey?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because maybe on the surface those two things don't seem immediately related, faith and community, but I think they actually are very interrelated. As Christians, we actually believe that God, if you've heard of the concept of the Trinity, basically this is the idea that God exists as three persons, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And we don't need to go super in depth, but basically the idea is that God is a community, and that each of these three persons love each other, basically. And so the Bible says that we were made in God's image, and I think that we were also made to be in community. And so I think it is a huge faith topic, because I think that's a big part of the Christian faith for me.
Yeah, that it's interlinked to all parts of faith, sort of even from what we believe in, that there is a communal God, to helping us understand and grow in our faith.
Yeah.
So what are some of the communities you are a part of?
I think we're all a part of communities, and I think some of them are more obvious than others. I'm a part of the Canvas community, obviously. My family is a community. My marriage even is kind of a community, just with me and her. Those are the ones that are obvious and easy, but I think there's plenty of others. I think our city is a community in some ways. Even your neighborhood is a community. I live in an apartment block, and my building is kind of a community, although I don't engage with it very much. Maybe you're in a society or a club or something like that. Like those can all be communities, or just an interest group. You and some friends, you and your housemates. Like I think those are all examples of communities that we're a part of.
And in a little bit, we're going to explore a bit more of what the Bible says about community and some of the thoughts found within the Bible. But before we get there, why is community important to people who may not be exploring faith yet or just non-Christians?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important for everybody. I think, like I said, my faith informs for me why we need community, but I don't think humans needing community is an inherently faith based idea. I think it's pretty clear, to me at least, even outside of my beliefs or whatever. We all need each other. We need to be around other people. We've all experienced loneliness. Wanting to be with people. We've all had a time when we needed something. Whether that was very practical, like, hey, can you help me move? Or I'm going through this hard time. Maybe I have a grief that I'm dealing with, or just like uni's really kicking my butt right now. In those moments, we need support from other people, and that's the role of community. So even if it's not faith based, like, I think we all need that, and I think we all can benefit from learning how to do that better.
I agree. I mean, it's something, you hear the saying, no person's an island. So
Yeah.
I think that's so true for all of us, that we all need other people in our lives. So what does the Bible say about community?
I actually think the Bible has a lot to say about community. I would argue that most of what the Bible has to say about how we're supposed to live our lives is relevant to the idea of community. So the first kind of part of the Bible that we call the Old Testament revolves around the Israelite people, and a lot of it is about them living as a community, them escaping from slavery and going to the Promised Land, and then being conquered and exiled and back to the Promised Land. And all throughout this, you kind of see them exploring what does it mean to be a community. God had kind of picked them as his kind of special project in some ways, and I think a lot of the instructions he gives them are about how to live together as a community, and how to take care of people, how to keep everybody safe. Things about just justice and all of those things. I think is very community based, and they sometimes did better than others, and so that's kind of why Jesus came, to kind of further show us what does it look like to be in community and to live with other people and to love them. So there's this community with him and his followers, and how they share space and interact with each other, and that's him exemplifying like how to live in community. And then a little bit later, like after Jesus had left, we read about the early church, in the years and decades after Jesus had left, like how they lived. And there's this passage in Acts that I was going to read about that time. It says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. And I just really like that, because I think it's a great picture of their lives together. I love that idea of kind of shared resources. Those who had more were gave more, and those who needed more got the help that they needed. And I just think that's such a great picture of what community can look like when everybody is welcome and cared for.
Yeah, the scripture Matt read was from Acts 2, which is just a picture of the very, very early church, just after Jesus had died and rose from the dead and left the disciples. But before a lot of the chaos and strifing and just sort of people getting in the way of things. And it was this really beautiful picture of community at its best and finest. So if you want to read that, I definitely recommend reading Acts 2. And so what do you find challenging about community? Because all of these things, as you said, we find in the Bible, from the Old Testament and the Israelites to Jesus talking about community to the church and the rest of the New Testament. They're great pictures of what it can be, but it's not always easy, is it?
No, it's definitely not. And this is something that I've had to learn. I identify as an introvert. I definitely am refueled by having good alone time. And so there definitely are times in my life when, even still, I can get in a place where I don't feel like dealing with people, where I don't want to deal with community. I remember at the very beginning of this whole pandemic lockdown situation, there was a part of me before I knew that it was going to be, a year and a half, that the idea of lockdown didn't sound so bad to me. Like, oh, I get to work from home. Like, I don't have to deal with people all the time. Like, twist my arm, And obviously, that's been proven very wrong. I miss being around people. I miss, even working in person. Like, I've come around. I used to think that I could do most of my job from home, and now I definitely don't think that anymore. But I think it is difficult, because people are messy. People make mistakes. Even my best friends, even my wife, sometimes they will do things that are hurtful, or they'll say something that's not helpful, and they have needs. Again, like, it's not all about them helping me with my stuff. Like, they have stuff too, and sometimes it can be really difficult to help them through that. And it's like, I don't want to deal with that. I'd rather just hang out or whatever. So it is definitely difficult. It's hard work, but it's definitely worth it.
I think that's a great observation that, yes, we have different personalities, that there are extroverts in the world and introverts, but we all need community, and there will be different challenges for different personality types and different kinds of people, but it's one of those things where it is needed for all of us. And I really liked what you said there about the reciprocal nature. It isn't just about my needs getting met. It is, how can I love and serve people, sometimes outside of my comfort zone, where it's not always convenient and what I would necessarily choose to do.
Yeah, for sure. Just as much as I would want to receive something from a community, whether that's help or whatever, like, you also have to be willing to give that to somebody else in the community for it to work, which is beautiful and also challenging sometimes.
Yeah, the two-way street nature of community is what makes it hard, because we love when it's coming our way, the one-way street, but when it's sometimes we need to be the ones who are extending ourselves and pushing past our boundaries or comfort zone, is when community becomes challenging.
Totally.
So how has your view of community changed over time?
Yeah, it's definitely grown. I think I used to think that it was maybe not very, but that it was, merit-based. If I wanted to be a part of a community, then I had to prove to them why I belonged. I had to, maybe if it was a community based around a shared interest, like, I had to have that interest. I had to show them that I was cool, or, at least normal, that I was, whatever it was that I brought to the table. Maybe it was my sense of humor, or whatever it was that I, had something to add to that community. And so the idea of cliques, or social tiers, that all kind of played into finding my niche. Like, there's some communities that are good for me and some that I don't belong in, or that any person may or may not belong in. But I think I've realized as I've grown, like, in some ways those might be a good place for a community to start. There's nothing wrong with a shared interest, a board game club, or whatever it is. But I think the best communities are open to everybody. You don't have to earn your way in. You don't have to, have anything to offer. You are welcome to just be yourself, be who you are, need what you need, and bring to the table whatever you have, and that can be enough. You can be welcomed and loved as yourself. And I think that's a really powerful idea. I think that's almost countercultural in a lot of ways. But I really think that's what the best communities look like. I think that's what Jesus talked about when he talked about community. And I think that's what, no community is perfect that I've been a part of or that anyone's been a part of. But I think the best experiences I've had have been in that direction of, welcoming and accepting of everybody.
I think that's a great point. The best communities aren't just homogenous beast where everybody's like everybody else.
Yeah, definitely.
And hopefully that's what we're trying to do at Canvas, is bring different kinds of people together with different experiences. And so some of our listeners will be perhaps entering a new stage of life and starting to move into new cities and new jobs and new life experiences. And as these transitions start to take place, what advice do you have for people who are leaving one set of communities that they've developed and will start to begin to find new communities?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the first thing I would say is that if that's something you're struggling with, you are absolutely not alone. I'm now, 7 or 8 years out of uni, and plenty of friends that I know have talked to me about struggling with this. Maybe they graduate uni and move to a new city for a job, or maybe they stay but they're close friend network move, or even just like being out of that uni environment. There's, I think, fewer tools for making new friends and plugging in with a new community once you leave the uni. Or maybe you're still in uni, but you are struggling with that. So I would just say, like, it's definitely not easy. And so if that's something you're struggling with, it's not because you're weird or different or whatever. It's a really difficult thing. And so the second thing I would say is that it's definitely worth it. And that I would encourage you to keep trying, keep working at it. For all the reasons we've talked about. Like, I think community is beautiful, and it's something that we all need. And so I would say, if you're struggling with that, you're not alone. It's not your fault. And also, like, keep going, keep working at it. Just practically, like, how to do that. For me, church has been a huge way to do that. And so if that's something you're open to, if that's something you're interested in, like, I would say that's a great place to try to go to get plugged in. Even if you're not sure about the whole faith thing or religion or whatever, like, if you're just looking to meet some people to talk to, like, I think church is a great place to do that. Outside of that, there are still options. There's shared interest groups. I know I just said that I don't think a community should be solely based on that, but I do think it's a good place to start, is find some other people who are interested in board games or gardening or whatever it is, football, and start with that, start building that connection. And even, like, just talk to people you meet, meet your neighbors, meet people on the bus, or whoever it is, just like meet people and get to know them. And that's kind of where those organic communities can come from. And I know that's hard. Like, for me as an introvert, like, the idea of trying to, like, build community with the person sitting next to me on the bus is like, no thank you, like, absolutely not. But it can be done. Like, I've heard stories, it does work. And it's so good when it works out.
I think that's just great advice, because almost a lot of times our systems are designed to get the results they're doing. So if we just keep on doing the same habit over and over and over again, we're never going to develop the communities that a lot of us crave and really are looking for. And so a lot of times it's these baby steps. It might be asking a person to get a coffee this week, or starting a conversation with that coworker, or whatever it might be. Until you start having those things and pushing past some of your boundaries, you're not going to develop those communities a lot of times that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, our society is not designed for this. This is not something that is viewed as normal or important. And you can see that in so many ways. I just see people on their commute with headphones in, no interest in the world around them. And I mean, that's me too. Like, I listen to a podcast on the bus on the way to work. But it's just like so much of what we do is based on, individualism and do your thing. And we're not encouraged to interact with people. And for those of us who are looking for that, who want to build those relationships, there's very little in our world that's built to facilitate that. And so it can be difficult for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. It's a conscious choice that we have to make to choose community in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And say I've had the courage enough to start having those conversations, asking a coworker to coffee, or having a beer with my next door neighbor. How do those relationships really develop from those starting places?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I would say there's a lot to say, but I think I'll say two things. First of all, like, you can never go wrong just asking a question. Like, people love to talk about themselves. And a lot of us don't have the opportunity to. And so if you just say, like, what are you up to right now? Or, like, what's going on in your life? Like, it makes them feel safe, and it gives them the opportunity to share about something that maybe's been on their mind that they haven't had the opportunity to. And part two of that is listening well, like actually being interested in the answer, makes them feel safe and valued in a way that a lot of us don't always get. The other thing I would say is that I would encourage you to be vulnerable, which is we could do a whole other podcast about vulnerability. And actually we know of other podcasts. If you're interested, we can hook you up. But it's not a warm, cuddly word. I know it sounds scary, but if you don't have to share your whole life story, your deepest, darkest secrets with the person next to you on the bus. I would say don't do that. But I think kind of maybe take the next step, be a little bit more vulnerable than you might naturally. And I think you would be amazed how much that opens up. If somebody's willing to share with me, then that makes me more willing to share with them. It builds the feeling of safety and trust. And it's, that's how you build those deep relationships and that trust with each other. Because somebody's got to do it first. You can talk about football or whatever all afternoon, but until somebody says I'm actually really having a hard time this week, with whatever it is, that's how you start those conversations and that's how you build those relationships. So just what is that next step of vulnerability? What does that look like? And see who you can try it out on.
I think that's a great takeaway, because a lot of times we actually do have people around us in lives, but then we just feel like we can't actually talk about those things.
Yeah.
And then we feel boxed out. And so I think it does take some courage, but it's definitely worth it giving a shot and seeing what happens.
Yeah, totally.
So I just want to transport you back to uni, Matt. And if you could go on a time machine and go talk to that version of Matt, what is something you wish you could tell yourself, your uni self in particular?
Mm-hmm. I think I would tell him to slow down a little bit. I definitely remember moments where I might be having a hard time or struggling, especially with the uni aspect of uni. Maybe it was finals week or just a crazy term, and I just would wish for it to be over. I just want to get through this year and get to the summer or get to the Christmas break. And I think I probably in those moments was not really present. I think I had this narrative that this week, this month, whatever, is just going to suck. And there's nothing I can do about it. And so I just have to grin and bear it, and we can try again next year. And I think in doing that, I missed, it's not so that I was necessarily wrong. Finals were difficult, the uni was difficult, but there also were moments that were good that I probably didn't really fully live in and appreciate, because I was just focused on moving on to the next season. And so I think I would say just slow down. It's not going to kill you. These difficult times are difficult, but people have been there before and people are going to be there after you. And if you try to skip the bad parts, you're also going to skip the good stuff. And so I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, when you sort of just want to fast forward, you can't just selectively numb only the bad parts of life.
Yeah.
You will miss the golden parts as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway. Thanks for sharing that.
Totally.
And thanks, Matt, for joining us on our first podcast with you.
Yeah, thanks for finally inviting me.
I know. We chose to wait until season 3 to include you in the podcast.
Saving the best for last.
Yep. So thank you, the listener, for joining us this week with unilife. For more information about this podcast and for Canvas in general, follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Canvas Nottingham. And we will see you again next week as we continue our series. Goodbye.
Bye.